Welcome back. The Senate moving quickly on President Trump's cabinet picks, confirming Sean Duffy as Transportation Secretary in a 77-22 vote yesterday. Scott Bessent was sworn in as the 79th Treasury Secretary. He is already meeting with senior department officials. More confirmation hearings are happening today. We'll see how fast the Democrats allow this to move. RFK Jr. for HHS Secretary, Howard Lutnick for Commerce Secretary, and Kelly Loeffler for the head of the Small Business Administration on tap for today. Tomorrow's hearings include Kash Patel for FBI Director, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, among others. Joining me now is Montana Senator Steve Daines, a member of the Senate Finance and Foreign Relations Committees. Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Good to join you, Maria.
So how would you assess the hearings in terms of how rapidly President Trump is getting his team on the ground? Because I made the point earlier that it's very odd to me that there are 53 Republican senators and 47 Democrat senators, and it appears to me that the Democrats are running the table here.
Well, look, we're after the best start in a decade in terms of moving quickly in the U.S. Senate, and that's thanks to new Majority Leader John Thune, who's got the Senate working now 7 days a week. And because of that, we're 10 years ahead of where we were literally back in the days of Obama trying to put nominees through. And again, the most important thing we can do in the Senate is move President Trump nominees through, get them confirmed, get them on the job. Because, you know, somebody spent most of his life in the private sector. People equals policy. Who you hire makes all the difference in running great organizations. And I could not be happier with these nominees. They're fantastic. But our heads are down, working fast as we can to get these nominees across the finish line and serving.
Well, why would they want to delay, for example, Russ' vote?
Well, I'll tell you why they want to do it. The Democrats are doing all they can to throw sand in the gears to obstruct. It's the resist movement. You know, we saw that back in 17 with President Trump. They're doing the same thing because the most important currency on the floor of the U.S. Senate is time. If they can slow us down, that's how they slow President Trump down. We're not going to let it happen.
Okay. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth met at the White House yesterday after President Trump's proposal to build an Iron Dome-like defense system. This idea is just tremendous, I think. Trump set to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu next week at the White House, and Senate Democrats are blocking a bill that would sanction officials from the International Criminal Court who issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, look, first and foremost, I am so relieved and thankful that we have a president that has moral clarity on the issue of Israel. Look at the people he's putting in place. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Elise Stefanik as their new ambassador to the United Nations. You're going to have Mike Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel. These individuals, these leaders, understand the importance of Israel and of protecting Israel, allowing Israel to protect herself. And what he's doing right now with these Patriot missiles and so forth is he's allowing the Ukrainians to be negotiating from a position of strength. This will be a negotiated settlement at some point between Putin and Zelensky. But it's important with President Trump's leadership, you get better outcomes from a position of strength. It's exactly what President Trump is doing.
Yeah, and he's got all of these bold ideas. We spoke with your colleague yesterday and Deb Fisher, who told us a bit about that. But I want to play you some sound of Senator John Thune, who joined me on Sunday on Fox News to discuss some of these bold ideas. Listen to John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader. Watch. What are you looking for in terms of specifics in bulking up America's defense?
Well, obviously, our Navy, and if you look at the number of ships we have relative to our adversaries, particularly China, that's something the president is interested in, in an American Iron Dome concept. But frankly, the thing we've got to do, Maria, is we've got to increase the top line. We have underfunded, and in the Biden budget, there wasn't a single Biden budget that kept up with the rate of inflation when it comes to the military. And so we've got some making up to do. I think there's a very compelling argument on Panama, a very compelling argument on Greenland, and an optimism in America that we haven't seen in a long time. I think this has been a sluggish country, a country that's been bogged down under the weight of government regulation and red tape and taxation.
So, Senator, it's nice to see this renewed focus on defense and on our national security. You just mentioned the Patriot missiles, the U.S. sending around 90 Patriot missiles from Israel to Ukraine because the IDF says it had no use for the older systems. And Ukrainian President Zelensky is slamming Putin, saying that he's afraid to negotiate with strong leaders. President Trump recently threatened Russia with sanctions and tariffs if they do not agree to end the war. How do you see this defense infrastructure playing out And are you talking about $120 billion in a reconciliation bill for defense spending?
Yeah, absolutely. If America were a stock, we've had a great 8 days of our stock rising among the American people and around the world. It reminds me a lot of when Ronald Reagan took office back in 1981. It's morning in America again. It's peace through strength. Look, crossings on the southern border have decreased 60% already in the first 8 days under President Trump's leadership. But this is an important moment. That's why Pete Hegseth, as our new Secretary of Defense, is so important. It's not only investing more in our military, but it's how we spend those dollars. With the modern warfighter today, getting the woke culture out of the U.S. military, we need to be the most fierce fighting force in the world. That's how you keep America safe and keep the world safe.
And of course, the economy comes to mind, given the fact that you've got lots of bold ideas, but you need the money, and we have massive debt. The 2024 deficit was the highest it has ever been outside of a recession or an emergency, and we know that net interest of $881 billion in fiscal year 2024. The interest is the single largest item in the budget behind Social Security, more than spending on defense, Medicare, and children. So can you identify some offsets that you all have been able to come up with to actually pay for all of it?
Yeah, look, we need to have as much passion for keeping taxes low. We need to have similar passion for reducing spending. They are both threats to our long-term prosperity in America. Look what happened just last night. It's an underreported story where the Trump administration is offering buyouts now to all federal employees. In other words, that would be a significant savings. That's how you reduce the bloated bureaucracies in the federal government. Just like you came in to a turnaround in a company. If you're bloated, you have too many people, you need to reduce costs. You start with buyouts of employees. It's a genius move. And again, when you put people like President Trump, Elon Musk, Howard Lutnick, others in charge of government, I'll tell you what, they start running it like a business. You start seeing reduced costs. I'm very proud of the early steps already being taken here. We'll be working with the president, with Doge, with Elon and the team here to find ways to literally find $1 trillion worth of cost reductions. We've got to do it.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest threats we have long term, certainly to the United States.
Well, I love everything you're saying. Unfortunately, you've got three major trust funds that are facing looming insolvency, and that's Social Security, retirement, Medicare, hospital insurance, and highways. So is it time to start getting the axe to some mandatory spending, sir?
Well, there'll be a mandatory spending analysis that has to happen over the long haul. There's some low-hanging fruit. Let's start with 3 million federal employees, the bloated bureaucracies. That is a liability right now that the taxpayer of America has to support. It also drives ways for the federal government to think about being more efficient. That's one of the challenges in government. When you're in the private sector, you have the force of competition to drive efficiency and better value. You don't have that in government, but what they're doing right now in downsizing government is a great first step.
Great conversation this morning, Senator. We so appreciate your time.